Hello, and welcome to PSYWAR, the weekly podcast of the 8th Psychological Operations Group, Airborne, where we give people an inside look at the Psychological Operations Regiment. Welcome back to PSYWAR. This week we're discussing the PSYOP, NCO, and career path. I'm your host, Master Sergeant Mike Dean. With us today to discuss today's topic is Command Sergeant Major Jody Needham from the 8th Psychological Operations Group, Airborne. Welcome, Sergeant Major.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. If you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, about myself, I am from North Carolina, so it's really nice to be able to be here in this area. I grew up in the swamps of North Carolina, just inland from the Outer Banks, Nags Head, Kitty Hawk area. Really enjoyed it. Was able to roam free like a wild child through the swamps, chasing whatever I could chase, and just grew up with a rifle out shooting all day and all night sometimes, and just having a lot of fun. So it was great growing up here in North Carolina and being able to stay here in this area.
So you've basically been at home for the last how many years?
Pretty much. Just coming up on 25 years.
Okay.
So 25 years here.
And that's, we're not too far. You said Nags Head?
Just inland, between Elizabeth City and Nags Head, Kitty Hawk, Camden County. It's a wonderful place called Old Trap, North Carolina.
Okay. I haven't been up there. It's one part of North Carolina I haven't been to yet.
It's beautiful.
I was actually talking to my wife about going up that way sometime this summer. So
yeah, well worth it. Well worth it.
But so you've been home. Fort Bragg is the home of PSYOP.
Yeah.
You've basically been here your entire career. So it's stone's throw from home.
Yeah. Yeah. Very convenient. Be able to stay in touch with the family. My parents and brothers and sisters all live within the area. I've got one sister just across the border in Virginia, so it's easy for us to get together as a family and see each other and catch up and see how we're doing. So it's really nice.
No, that's fun. That's it, for me. It's hard because my immediate family are all up in Ohio, and all my in-laws are in Texas. So it's like when you start talking about family get-togethers and trying to bring everybody together, it's a little bit more difficult. So that's actually really nice. So you grew up on the coast, born and bred here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Something happened in your life. You said, I want to join the Army. How did that happen?
Yeah. Excuse me. After high school, I really didn't have much of a plan as far as any kind of career or anything. I grew up as a church-going boy as well, and went on a mission for a church for 2 years, and then came home. And during that time, some of the people that I was working with there said, "Hey, you really need to think about going to college." And so before coming home off of that church mission, I went to enroll and got into college. And so I had a plan. Came home, went straight to college for a year, and of course met my wife, fell in love, and we got married that summer. Then during the second year, of course, we were expecting a child a few months into that after being married, and then had our child, our oldest son, and things changed. Life got real very quickly, and I wanted to finish my college education, but money was pretty tight. And holding my son in my arms made me really contemplate, what am I going to do? And I had a brother-in-law that was in the Army, and he said, "Hey, you should join the military. You'll get college money, and you'll be employed at the same time,
right,
and you'll get to see some good opportunities along the way." So I looked into it, and it sounded great, and signed up. So
been here ever since.
That's what initially got me into the military.
Okay, and so when you get to the recruiter, time to sign up. What job did you sign up for?
I actually was was presented psychological operations from my brother-in-law. He said, "Hey, it's a great job. You get to be employed no matter what is going on in the world, from peacetime to wartime, and it's all about influencing the principles of freedom and doing the things that we really stand for as a nation." Helping others to be able to do the same things that we enjoy, pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. And,
Right.
you know, that attracted me really quick. I said, wow, that sounds too good to be true, but let me look into it. And then I found out that, well, at that time, Fort Bragg was, in fact, the only place you could be stationed. That was extremely appealing. I knew I'd be 4 hours from my parents, right around the corner from the beach, around my siblings and everything, and that drew me in quite a bit as to this sounds like the right thing for me and my family.
So you've been here. From the onset. PSYOP has been your career field. You hear. That term has kind of gone away, or those soldiers have gone away. We had a break where we didn't take soldiers as initial entry, and it has since come back. So you've seen a lot of things over your career as not just a soldier, but as a PSYOP soldier.
Yeah.
Going from private to sergeant major, E1 to E9, in this career field. So, how has your experience been over those in the PSYOP regiment over those 25 years?
It's you're right. I have seen a lot of differences. I started our advanced individual training was right here on Fort Bragg. Went to basic training down at Fort Jackson and went to airborne school from there, only to come here to Special Warfare Center and School for Psychological Operations. And after graduating, I literally was in a World War II hut 50 meters from this exact spot along the road. And none of those buildings are here anymore, obviously. But it was a good experience. We did a lot of training together with the 82nd Airborne Division and, parachuting in with them on different training events and working together with Special Forces and other special operations units. Did a lot of exercises together during that time, and it was summer of 1996, so not a lot was going on. Bosnia was kind of slowing down. A couple of the other companies had Bosnia rotations, but we were the Pacific Command aligned company, so we did exercises in South Korea right off. 1 month out of AIT, I was in South Korea, riding around in a loudspeaker truck together with our South Korean PSYOP counterparts and their loudspeaker jeeps, and just rode up and down the peninsula doing training exercises together with them to defend the peninsula, and gained some incredible relationships with some life friends. I could still see some of them when we take trips over to South Korea, and some of them are still there, and we touch base. So, but within the career field itself, you're right. We changed in 2008 or 9. We started the assessment and selections. 2010. I want to say we did the assessment and selections and stopped allowing initial entry soldiers for a good period of time into the career field. And that was mostly for the maturity level that it really takes for psychological operations personnel. Having interacted with U.S. ambassadors in various countries, I think I was a private first class back before interacting with ambassadors. Early on, as a private first class, I'd be in a battalion operations center planning for our tactical PSYOP team with a battalion commander as a private first class, And always some hesitancy as to why is there a PFC in here
Right.
briefing as part of my staff. And, you know, it'd be like, well, we're part of the tactical PSYOP team that's going to be providing support to your operations, and we need to know where we need to be to help you with whether it be civilian non-interference with displaced civilians on the battle space versus, you know, interacting with the enemy and letting them know, you know, your best opportunity is to surrender in
Right.
this situation, or it's going to change for you. So, I mean,
Right.
there were a lot of variety of things, even as a PFC, that I was faced with. But then, you know, to expand from that to working with U.S. ambassadors as a brand new E5, coordinating psychological operations within their country that they were responsible for. It was a heavy responsibility. So within that time, the change and opportunity came to, hey, we need to change this and allow those soldiers that have the maturity to enter this career field. This level of responsibility is a little more than your private first class. So it was a good quality change that we've been able to see over the past few years.
Having seen it myself, because when I first came into the MOS, I had junior enlisted. I had a PFC on my team, and so it was interesting to, and we were a tactical team, so we didn't have that direct, you know, ambassadorial level engagement because we were out working with an ODA,
Right.
you know, Special Forces, you know, detachment, and so still need that level of maturity to a point.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was quite as high of a level, given that we had two, you know, I had myself and I had a really good team chief that kind of helped guide and mentor us as both, because we were both new. I was, you know, coming from the infantry branch, and then I had an initial, you know, entry soldier who had never deployed. This was his first, you know, experience going forward and supporting another unit, another mission, and so, you know, for him, he had to grow up really fast. He was a really young guy, and you know, one of my best friends today, like we talk, you know, occasionally. He's now an officer, so it's great to see him grow in the military. But you know, that maturity level that you spoke about, I think is really a testament to where we've come as a regiment, because now you see all of our ranks. The base rank is a sergeant. So I'm curious, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about the development piece, but what are your thoughts with now that initial entry piece coming back, but with a different focus and how they're groomed? You know, you don't just have that AIT.
Right. And I obviously am a big fan of the initial entry program. I supported it greatly a few years ago as an opportunity as our career field continued to expand and grow into two separate groups and continue to grow with more battalions and opportunity. We saw the need that we're going to have to figure out a solution for us to grow at the rate that we need to fill the ranks and allocations that we have. And the concept came up about allowing initial entry soldiers back in. And I was all for it and still am, very much all for it, so long as the process still stays in place. With the assessment and selection that was able to get established, and with the course itself being the PSYOP qualification course being almost a year, that allows us to be able to see that same level of maturity and to help foster that same level of maturity. I mean, people like you, other senior NCOs as instructors over there, is able to relay to them what the expectations truly are, because they're great responsibilities. I know back to, you know, being a PFC as the assistant team leader on our tactical PSYOP team, it put me in a situation to have to defend the position with the battalion commander when
Right.
he showed up to get briefed. And, you know, I was 24 years old, had been out doing other things prior to the military that provided me some opportunities to be able to work within that kind of a setting. So, you know, it was still a little uncomfortable, obviously, but still at the same time, realizing what you were really focused on, just like you with the ODA, you know, a Special Forces detachment, to be able to take that step back and see why what you're doing is so important. That demands a certain level of maturity and being able to articulate at that time, we should do this because these people over here really need these actions to be taken for them to be able to have a certain way of life that we as Americans live and die for. That takes a certain level of person of maturity to be able to push in that direction.
No, I agree. And even still, you know, granted we have, you know, NCOs. It's an NCO MOS, you know, career field. It still takes that level of maturity because you're still the junior, you know, guy or gal on the team, and you're still having those same engagements, and you still have to sometimes have that uncomfortable conversation when you're speaking to, you know, field grade leadership or even, you know, flag officers or ambassadors in that case, and they are confused. Why don't I have a lieutenant colonel or a colonel here briefing me? Well, because that sergeant is the expert, and they're the ones that are going to provide you with the right guidance on where we should go with this operation.
Yeah.
So the expectation hasn't changed.
No.
And I think that's just a testament to the level of what we do within the regiment across, you know, you said peacetime and wartime.
Yeah. I think, you know, just to think of those experiences early in my career, you know, there were many 06 full colonels that we ended up interacting with quite a bit as things progressed and as they saw what psychological operations had to offer and how much difference it could make within that space as we presented the true analysis of what is the driving force of the population that we're operating within right now, and to help them have that additional information to make more educated, more calculated decisions. I think they came to realize, hey, you know, this is collaborating together with my intelligence personnel, together with the psychological operations personnel as to what are the incentives of these people. You know, I think it brings something incredible to the table to help those level of commanders and interagency leaders, State Department leaders, see opportunities to make a difference out there through the things that psychological operations personnel can bring. NCOs, many of them.
Yep.
Many of them.
I mean, a majority of the force are NCOs,
Yeah.
and there are times where you will see teams that are all NCOs, just because we don't have enough officers. And so that's a testament to the NCO Corps. And so we're talking about NCOs. And that's going to be the theme throughout our conversation. And so I just want to hit something really quick for people that either are civilian or maybe even just junior level that don't really understand what an NCO is and what their role is in the military, specifically for the Army. So we're talking about a non-commissioned officer. So for just the Army in general, what's that non-commissioned officer role and responsibility? What does that look like and mean?
Well, I know the population of non-commissioned officers really make up really the bulk of the force across the military. They're that mid-level leader, you know, that receives the orders from the commissioned officers to be able to go out and execute the missions with your soldiers. As we said, psychological operations, the initial entry once, even if you're an initial entry soldier today, by the time you're done with basic training, assessment, selection, a year-long pipeline course of psychological operations, you're promoted to be an E5 sergeant, non-commissioned officer. So you're, as you said, many teams out there, a 3-person team, it's not hard to find a 3-person team of only non-commissioned officers following through with orders that someone else has planned, and you go out and execute and conduct that mission within whatever location and environment that the mission calls for. Again, heavy responsibilities and a great opportunity to make that difference. I can think of so many different experiences where, being in the jungles of Indonesia or the Philippines or Thailand and the Gobi Desert and Mongolia and Iraq and Afghanistan, of course, and just working directly with what that mission is and the guidance that you've received to go out and do this, and to be able to grab that task and take it and go together with your team that, like you said, you've got relationships that's going to last you the rest of your life. I mean, I do too, with those team sergeants and team members, and feeling the difference that you're making out there. And that's non-commissioned officer work at its finest. Together with your commissioned officer leaders, to get that task, working together with them and go out and execute. And that's really the true role in my mind, in my opinion, of what a non-commissioned officer does and is expected to do. Have your team ready. Is your stuff ready to go out in this environment? Are you ready to be successful? Knowing that you're healthy, you're strong, you're fit, you're in every respect. You've done your research. You've studied and analyzed the different groups of people that you're going to be interacting with to help them find a better way of life. It's a wonderful opportunity as a PSYOP soldier and PSYOP non-commissioned officer.
For me, the thing that I noticed, because I came over as a sergeant from the infantry, and looking at the roles and responsibilities, I think the roles are very similar to where anywhere else you would be in the Army. I think the change when you come into PSYOP is that responsibility grows because of the level where we work. We mentioned it earlier, having, before the force structure changed, you have a PFC briefing, an ambassador. Well, now we have a sergeant briefing an ambassador, and so the responsibilities of an NCO are still there. And even as you grow through the ranks, yes, you are a supervisor as you move up to staff sergeant, sergeant first class, so forth. But you're still involved in the operational piece of it. So managing, supervising, but also doing. And so that scope of responsibility widens to me greatly. And that for me was challenging at first, but after a few years it became very rewarding because you start to see, you mentioned the impacts that you're having on the various operations. And so that to me is a testament to our NCO Corps in the regiment.
I think another part of it too is the opportunity to see things through. That was one thing that I recognized, is now today it would be a non-commissioned officer working together with a supported unit. But you have the opportunity to sit and come up with your plan of what needs to happen. This action needs to happen in this space. And to be able to come up with that plan and then, whatever it is, parachute in with your team together with whatever elements going in, all the way down to finding yourself in that village in actually executing the things that you came up with together with that staff. And I always found it interesting that you would, at least in my experience, going from putting the plan together to all the way down to execution. I know we do it with our special operations brothers, but with a lot of the other units, you would see multiple different faces along the way. You'd see your planners and your staff that came up with it, all the way down to the company leadership, and then down to the platoon or whatever the level was out executing. And then again on the battle space, you'd run into somebody from the staff and they'd find you down executing. They would usually be confused. What are you doing here? Like, hey, this is my opportunity to be a full part of this process. I get to see this from start to finish as part of the PSYOP support actions taking place in this area. So it's a great experience to be able to see it through instead of stopping somewhere along the way and scratching your head wondering, well, I wonder what they're doing with that. Well, I get to do that.
So soldiers graduate, they come to the PSYOP regiment as an NCO. So now they are expected to perform as an NCO. Now they're going to be promoted as such through the ranks. So as a senior NCO, we're going to have to develop our juniors. That's normal across the Army. What does that development look like in the PSYOP regiment today? Because I know it's changed over the years, even for myself. I've seen a lot of changes. You know, I've been in the regiment for 12 years. I've seen a lot of changes, you know, for the good. What does that look like right now for a new soldier coming in, and even for some of the mid to senior guys, how they're developing their juniors? What does that development for an NCO look like?
Yeah, I think we've worked really hard and have had lots of opportunity to make sure that this is done right. The community's small. I mean, we only have 2 PSYOP groups, equivalent to brigades led by 06 colonels. So we've had lots of opportunity to influence how the progression of non-commissioned officers continues forward. There was many times where we had discussions along the psychological operations course, you know, currently 46 weeks, to be able to add some of the non-commissioned officer development course topics and things that they need to be able to achieve during that course. We debated that for some time and finally came to being able to keep it out of the course completely. There are obviously tasks within the course that will help them be able to be molded and mentored into those abilities to make those decisions as leaders from the instructors. But we worked to actually keep the advanced leaders course outside of the pipeline 46 weeks, mostly to allow NCOs to be able to come back together and learn from each other, specifically on those topics of becoming a junior leader, a junior non-commissioned officer, together with the right instructors to be able to share the experiences to help them to grow and mold into being able to advance as a non-commissioned officer and a leader in those different environments and different settings that they will be faced with. So to try to mix that together within the regular psychological operations tactics and techniques, we recognize it as being too much. It's too much information in one setting, and we saw the need to keep it separated to allow them to come back together in small groups, learn from each other, and learn from those good quality experienced leaders that we have selected as instructors in those courses. And again, we have a lot of control over those courses through the Army, through TRADOC, to be able to run things in accordance with the requirements, and to add in those additional psychological operation pieces that will help them to learn and grow and progress. And that continues through, you know, advanced leaders course, senior leader course, and then ultimately the master leader course that becomes an Army Special Operations leader development course where they combine together with Special Forces and Civil Affairs NCOs to be able to talk together and learn from each other in that setting. So there's a very good staged approach to help them as non-commissioned officers to get what they need when they need it. So graduating from the course after 46 weeks of being in class and school together, obviously, we were all ready, like trapped. I want to get out, and to allow them to go to a detachment and a team, spend some time there, prep and get ready, and turn around and go right back to a non-commissioned officer development course together with peers and learn in a different setting. It's a good approach, in my opinion.
I've been lucky, I think, because I've had a lot of really good NCOs. But speaking as developing and building that force, aside from your NCOES requirements, to get soldiers ready to lead at the next level, we have all these other opportunities. So I was wondering if you could speak to some of those opportunities that help develop not just the NCO piece of the NCO Corps, but how does a soldier build up as a PSYOP soldier?
Yeah.
And then how does that get passed down through the ranks? You go to a school or you go to a JSET or whatever it is. There's other unique opportunities that we have within the regiment besides the standard non-commissioned officer requirements.
Yeah, I know the ability to go to those different advanced kinds of schools is tremendous. I mean, I have to admit I didn't have a lot of those opportunities. I did get to go to some really good schools. I went to Defense Language School for Indonesian to be able to really learn the language. Today's language school over at Special Warfare Center and School is very, very competent and capable now. But in today's information environment, there's so many different skills that we need to understand as psychological operations non-commissioned officers, to understand that technology, social media is a tsunami, and still, it's been a tsunami for a long time, and it still is. Something new's coming out next month that we need to understand the different intricacies of how it works and how it collaborates in the system. And there's a lot of courses out there that help us to better understand the informational environment. There's lots of different specialized pieces of equipment, whether it be, Fortune 500 marketing companies coming up with different ways and methods to understand the sentiments of a buyer. If we want to sell this thing, how do we really gain people's attention and attract the crowd? So there's a lot of different pieces of equipment, hardware, software that goes along with that specific piece that can greatly benefit the psychological operation non-commissioned officer to understand what is happening within that tsunami, that's wall of water coming at you. Well, where do you start?
Right.
How am I going to defend myself against this wall of water? Where do I go? And there's a lot of tools out there that help us really zero in on the crucial pieces of information to help us best understand what is this group really thinking and who's involved within this thinking process, and how do we really analyze and understand what actions or interests and actions and things that people are doing to make a difference, and is that difference really the right difference that we're looking for? Is it one that we need to come up with something to defend and disrupt and distract and degrade,
right,
or is it something that we want to amplify and promote and help support? So there are a lot of social media analytics courses now, social media analytics tools, research and development that's taken place to help us stay where we need to be with today's technology. And there's obviously, we're in special operations, so the survivability courses are there, absolutely needed and necessary to keep us ready and able to survive in whatever environment we're called to go to. You know, I've been on tactical PSYOP teams, you know, with a rucksack, backpack on my back, roaming around in the middle of swamps with the rangers, you know, to best go after the problem set, all the way to wearing a suit in you know, the Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia embassy, interacting with the ambassador, talking about how we want to help in a certain particular problem set. So there are multiple, you know, executive communications courses. Make sure you know, you're talking the right way with the right people, and you can mess that up.
So as an NCO moves and grows, we talked about the traditional education system for an NCO, these unique opportunities to attend these different kinds of schools. What does a career look like? Because you've seen it from, you know, all the way from the beginning to sergeant major. So now you've seen the span of a career. What does that look like? And I'm sure it's probably a little bit different now than it was for yourself. Yeah. But how would somebody that's new coming into the MOS expect to grow through the ranks as a career in PSYOP?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that question, because I know with my experience, psychological operations plus Fort Bragg, North Carolina, you know, plus college money, were all very appealing things for me. And having seen that change, where, you know, before you're going to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, congratulations, that's where you're going. And for me, again, that was perfect, great. This is another selling point for me. Somewhere along the way, we had started expanding as a community and started putting planner and advisor positions out at different Army units and organizations across the field. And I think that opened up a big opportunity for others. Like yourself, you said from where, Ohio. You know, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, it's a little ways down the road. You know, whereas I remember being a first sergeant, and we were looking at doing our manning conference for the different positions that were opening up around the military units. And some of the positions, you know, you immediately thought, it's going to be really hard to find somebody that's going to want to go to that location. And we started pushing it out amongst our NCOs, saying, hey, we need somebody to go to this location and that location, this location. And, you know, first of all, who would be interested? And hands went up all over the place. Hey, my wife grew up 1 hour from there. How can I get that position? Right. And they were the right people, too. I mean, it was, hey, you quality PSYOP non-commissioned officer, you're going to go to that unit and do great things as a planner and advisor for that unit. And your wife's an hour from home. This was an easy decision for us to continue to pursue, as to many came to realize, well, I don't really want to be at Fort Bragg the rest of my career. Is there any way I can do something different? And this opened up those opportunities and gave them additional levels of responsibility to work at those locations. I mean, myself, I worked at 1st Information Operations Command up at Fort Belvoir, working with their mission set up there between 2003 and 2006, and had great experience as a team sergeant working in some of those problems that we focused on during that time. And came right, you know, so spent much of my career here in the tactical environment, regional embassy-like environment, working with our counterparts, bouncing between battalions, PCSing to Fort Belvoir to have a different experience as a team sergeant, and then came back as a first sergeant, Then after my first sergeant time, went out to U.S. Army Pacific in Hawaii, and was a planner and advisor for them for a good year and a half. Had a blast working with our psychological operation counterparts across the entire Pacific. Incredible time and experience. Got promoted to sergeant major and went just up the island, up the hill to 25th Infantry Division as the PSYOP planner, information operations sergeant major for 25th ID for their long deployment to Iraq, and gave me a good, different experience, and came back as an operations sergeant major in one of the battalions here on Fort Bragg. So I've had a variety of opportunities to go out and back and forth to help me to gain more experiences and to see things from a different view as to how psychological operations can truly make a difference at those various different positions. And if, again, like you were saying a while ago, opportunities to work with your counterparts, that can be tremendous in having that psychological effect, because your counterparts can have a much larger opportunity to enact a certain mission set than through the State Department sometimes. No, you can work together with them and come up with a plan and work with that host nation and host nation partners. And they can run with it and make things happen. It's a great experience, and bouncing back and forth and gaining from those experiences.
So looking at your experience, is that considered a typical career trajectory as you move through the ranks? Because I know you mentioned early on, like moving battalion to battalion. We've seen some force structure in a few years back, and so some of the older guys, my peers, I would say, it wouldn't be unheard of somebody staying, for example, in our 9th Battalion for an entire career, or somebody staying in 1st Battalion. So 9th Battalion was tactically focused,
right,
whereas 1st Battalion is Southern Command focused.
Yeah.
You would run into people that their whole career they would be they'd be on a team, they'd be a team chief, they would be a dead sergeant, they would be a first sergeant. Next thing you know, they're sergeant major and they're still in the same battalion.
Right.
Is that a normal trajectory, or I think what does it look like right now?
Yeah, I think that we've really, as the senior NCOs within both PSYOP groups, we came together and really established trying to ensure that everyone got a rounded experience. My experience is different. All of our experiences are different. I mean, when we really boil it down, but my experience is pretty typical as far as being here at Fort Bragg, PCSing to somewhere else for a couple of years, PCSing back to Fort Bragg for a few years, and back and forth, and you eventually come back to Fort Bragg to allow that stepping stone process to happen. Internally, I'm very happy with the way it worked for me. I started right out of school in 9th Battalion. Loved it. Tactical PSYOP team 983 and 984. I loved it. It was a great experience. Our team, we had a great relationship. Spent a year and a half, 2 years, went to language school, and then bounced between that and our PACOM battalion, and then back to 9th, back to the PACOM 5th Battalion. And I that's what we're really encouraging and pushing for today, to allow our non-commissioned officers to be able to get that wide variety of mission sets. You can see, for me it's easy to see, psychological operations is psychological operations. Whether you be in a house talking to a village leader or at an embassy talking to your counterparts, you're ultimately striving to have a quality, effective change that needs to take place. And our world is full of problems. No one's exempt. Our world is full of problems. And if we have the ability to go identify those problems, come up with an action plan, and go to that location with a plan in mind and work with the right leaders, whether it be military, government, interagency leaders, to establish that and enact it. That's what it's about. So if you find yourself roaming through a desert with your rucksack, backpack on, or in a suit in an embassy talking to the interagency, ultimately your task and goal remains the same in my view and in my experience, making that difference.
Something you mentioned earlier that ties to this, I don't think a lot of people realize, is the Manning Conference. And so if you don't mind kind of explaining what that is, because a lot of people don't, especially in other MOSs. I came from infantry.
Yeah.
That's the biggest branch in the Army. And so, they're managed at HRC like everybody, but I think we have a unique thing, the Manning Conference,
we do.
that when we're talking about an NCO's career track and that trajectory, you have an ability to affect it, not just personally, but you have that dialogue with your leadership to help mold your career. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I am not aware of anybody else doing it the way that we do. Every spring and fall, we hold a regimental Manning Conference for the 37 Fox non-commissioned officers to slate them for their next assignments. This is more specifically to assignments away from Fort Bragg or even here on Fort Bragg for different units, Special Warfare Center and schools, selecting our instructors, selecting the assessors that's going out to the Psychological Operations Assessment and Selection cadre. We go through a full talent management process to make sure that our non-commissioned officers are where they need to be in their career progression and being talent managed so that they're ready to make those steps. We try not to get beyond 12 months away from assigning someone into a position because a lot can change beyond 12 months. So usually for every spring session, we're looking for the next summer, not a couple of months away, but the absolute next year, summer. And we project that out, and it allows our non-commissioned officers and their families some predictability.
Right.
That's huge, to be able to have that predictability. It allows you to plan for your kids where they're going to go to school, start looking at areas where what is the best setting. And that's a lot of time to be able to do that. And we work really hard to do that. It's not always perfect. Someone may have some emergency and has to come off in that assignment for one reason or another. And, but usually we work really hard to find someone that's in a position to fill that gap, and those are rare, but to get that far ahead to allow our non-commissioned officers predictability with their career, you slate them for a specific assignment. Say they're going to go work at a tactical special operations command headquarters. Then with that much time, well, we can go to the Joint Special Operations University course and go to the right schools to become as educated as possible to know how to integrate in that staff. Or if you're going to a brigade staff planner position, we'll go to battle staff. We'll, line all those things up so that we're setting our non-commissioned officers up for complete success. We're going to give you that amount of time to get to the training that you need to be successful in that position. And, it's never fun to go to something and wonder,
wish I knew more.
don't know, that would have been nice to know about that before, but with that time, it gives us the ability to get them to the right schools and training to help them be successful.
So with that, how does that conversation go? Is it, the first sergeant says, I got a guy, or
No,
when we're talking about that soldier who's looking to build on their career, or even as a leader trying to help build that soldier up and say, hey, you need to go somewhere to do something different. How does that look from that lowest level to your level?
Right. I think it encompasses all of that, of course. Any good leader is going to sit down and do the proper counseling with their personnel and soldiers and identify talents and weaknesses and come up with a plan to overcome those weaknesses and to hone in on the strengths. And that should encompass, hey, you've been here coming up on 36 months, 3 years, that's a long time. You should start looking at the next thing that you're focused on. What do you want to accomplish? And together, with your leader, actually discuss what you are looking to achieve. Do you want to focus in this area? Do you want to focus in that area? And get the schools needed to be able to start going in that direction. And that's true talent management. And along with that, every 6 months, spring and fall session, we get working together closely with the Human Resources Command and our HRC branch managers. Here's the next assignments that will need to be filled over this period of time. And my push from being the group sergeant major is I'll provide that to our battalion sergeant majors and say, hey, get this to your first sergeants, and they need to get together with their non-commissioned officers and start looking at who is the right person to go into these positions. So the engagement between those leaders with their non-commissioned officers is available for them to be able to see, that positions. And that goes back to what I said when I was a first sergeant, before we really solidified this process a few years ago, before my time, we solidified this and, randomly asked amongst the NCOs, hey, who of you is interested in going to this infantry division out here in this location? Like I said, hands go, hey, my wife grew up an hour from there. So there is that opportunity now. And there's leeway as well as to, well, that position's not available right now. Somebody just filled it, a year ago, so it's not going to be available for another 2 years. But if that's what you're really interested in, we'll put that down and hope that timing-wise that we can work that out. It doesn't always happen, but we do the best we can to try to make that work for a talent management process. If that's the right move, then we're a small enough community to have those discussions and work towards those ends.
So we've talked about an NCO's career, kind of some of the things that they can expect to experience as they go through their time in the regiment. Are there any specific milestones that a new soldier, a new NCO should kind of keep their eye on?
Yeah.
And put, bookmark this for my career.
Yeah.
That come to mind for you, that to tell our guys out there that are coming into the MOS, this is how you should manage your career, so to speak.
Yeah, I think obviously right out of the course, the intention is for them to come straight to a detachment and be on a psychological operations detachment and team, and they should expect to be there, preferably up to 36 months, 3 years.
Okay.
Now there's different opportunities within that detachment to be able to progress. There's different, rank structures within it. So there's that opportunity to be promoted within. But somewhere along that time, they should look to expand into those different positions. Like I talked about before with being able to jump between battalions. If you're in a detachment here and the focus for this location responsibility with that detachment is going to be this experience. to be able to gain from that experience. Within that time, there are multiple other experiences within the groups to be able to deploy to different locations and in different environments. But again, somewhere within that 36 months, 48 months of being able to progress within that setting internally in detachment settings, then you should probably look at those opportunities to change stations, whether it even be like your situation. You didn't really change stations, you changed job duties and responsibilities as an instructor, but you went between two different high-level commands, with a 2-star general over that command and back to the 06 group levels, versus me, going to, within that 06 level out to, either a brigade combat team, PSYOP planner, or, first information operations command, team sergeant over a small team. So there's a wide variety. But again, those first 36 months is really looked at as honing that initial experience. Probably you definitely go, if you're initial entry soldier, go to advanced leader course, and then maybe even senior leader course, depending on the time that you'll be in your career within that setting. So we've worked hard again with the Manning Conference, with business rules of, hey, our non-commissioned officers should look to stay in this deploying setting to refine those skills and experiences for a 24, 36 month period before moving to the next experiences. And it refines those talent management, how you find out who has the skills and the interests for these different settings, and how they progress. So the other thing that's very beneficial for us is the 1-to-2 dwell to deploy ratio. Right now with Special Operations Command, it's 1-to-2. You deploy for 6 months, and then you stay home for 12 months. And there's talk of even that going to 1-to-3, which would allow even more training and refinement in education settings before going back out and employing the skill craft. But that has helped us to keep people in a rotation with career progression. You now have every opportunity to go to the schools that you need to be promoted, and to prepare, have quality time to prepare for your next deployment. Before, there was a long time where we were in a 1-to-1, deploy 6 months, come home for 6 months, deploy for 6 months, come home for 6 months. I mean, that was extremely compressed. You were lucky to get your schools that you needed in within that 6 months of being home to be ready to get right back on the next deployment. So there are those blocks, the professional development model, anybody can look that up, psychological operations, professional development model, and it will show those chunks of time, ideal for the staff sergeant level. Here's the positions you should look for. Then progressing to the staff sergeant first class, master sergeant, first sergeant, sergeant. So all those things are very well put together to help people see the different options that they have within the different ranks and how long they should expect to stay in those ranks over that period of time.
So what it sounds, from what you said, is anywhere from 2 to 4 years, kind of at each level building, and obviously the assignments are going to change based off the grade and what's available. We talked about the Manning Conference, but about every 2 to 3 years, you should start looking and talking
Right.
to your leadership for
Right.
opportunities to grow within the regiment,
Yeah.
and then expect to move in some capacity, whether it's a position within your detachment or company, or potentially a move to another unit, or
Right.
a broadening assignment, something like that.
And we've pushed for some of those positions outside of Fort Bragg. If the mission isn't a priority mission for that unit that they're PCSing to, to only have them there for 24 months, and then they come back and get into the deploying cycle again at the next level, at the Sergeant First Class level, as they continue to promote, to be able to continue that upward momentum, climbing the different levels of responsibility as they're promoted.
So I kind of want to move on. We've talked a lot about just the development of the NCO, and we're growing. So we talked about some unique schools and training milestones. The force is continuing to evolve, and I know we've had some new things that have come into the force over the last few years, maybe 4 or 5 years. So I was wondering if you could speak to any advanced or special opportunities that are within the regiment, or maybe even outside of the regiment, because we did talk about broadening. But for those individuals that are here, they've heard the tactical side, they've heard the unique opportunities
Right.
with going to embassies.
Right.
Or are there any other special or advanced opportunities either within the regiment directly, or that people can get into outside the regiment?
Yeah, I know. Again, we had hit on before with the information environment changing, and it changes rapidly, and those opportunities to work together with different organizations and different agencies. There are those experiences that are out there. A lot of different organizations and agencies are always looking for a psychological operations expert to come and supplement, if not lead, some of the efforts that we bring to the table. There are other special mission units that we have psychological operations support to right here at Fort Bragg, that provides you with a pretty compact, high adventure experience that we have as psychological operations non-commissioned officers, that we've enjoyed very much. One of the big pushes today is the recognition that, again, we've mentioned it before, the tsunami of information that's available. There's a strong drive for us to be able to be postured in a way to best meet our nation's needs against those problems that are the tsunami problem that can be coming at us as a nation in various ways.
No, it's a good place to be. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Some of the best soldiers and NCOs, officers I've worked with,
Yeah.
have been here. So we're coming to our end, coming to the close. But before we do that, I wanted to give you a last chance opportunity. If there's anything that you want to share, tips, anybody that's considering coming into PSYOP, whether it's civilian, other soldiers that are out there, anything that you would like to tell our audience out there.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I know we've talked about doing this for a while now, and I'm glad that we were able to finally put this together. So I really appreciate it, truly do. I can't say enough for what this opportunity's been for me. It's been an incredible career. I honestly came in for the college money. Early, before I actually got in and started basic training, my true intent was just to go with the college money and finish my education. And shortly after just being around the teammanship environment, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. And the things that it's provided for not just me to be a part of something far bigger than myself, to really realize that you're a part of something incredibly bigger than who we are individually, but we individually make up what this is. I can't say enough as to how much is provided to my family. You know, I've got my wonderful wife, 5 kids, and you know, the Army has been there the entire time to help us through whatever we needed help with, and just to have the resources available and to see those same concepts of our nation enacted towards our family as I'm a part of something so much bigger than I am. It's been humbling. I can't say enough as to how grateful I am to just be a part of it, to be around those that I will never forget, and to make a difference in the world, to see the difference in the world that it has, is inspiring. I don't have all the words to really say, but to be in the jungles and the desert and the freezing Gobi Desert or wherever, you know, and to look in the faces of people. Just to look in the faces of people and know that you're doing whatever you can to make that difference. It makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it. So I would encourage anybody, you know, if you want to make a difference, this is your opportunity. Make that difference. Be a part of something that you will be honored to be a part of, and then, while at the same time receiving all that comes with it. I mean, I have so much more than I really need, to be honest, and it's a great opportunity. I'd encourage anybody to do it, so go for it. Go after it. Make that difference. Thanks again.
We appreciate it, Sergeant Major. Lots of good input for anybody that's, you know, not only looking to come into the force, but that's already here. So, like I said, we appreciate you coming out and talking with us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for today's broadcast. As always, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.